What does wellness mean to you? Well, it means different things to different people. Some people, when they hear the word wellness, they think of their body and being strong and fit and thin, and you could be on the front of a magazine. For other people, when they think of wellness, they think of their mind and their relationships and having close-knit family. And for other people, wellness has to do with their spirit and being peaceful and hopeful and grateful. What is it to you? Well, early in my life, people would have looked at me and thought I was well, but I was anything but well. My body was unhealthy, and it caused me to be uncomfortable, and I was reactive and agitated and defensive and sad. And it also, my unhealthy body made me feel kind of hopeless about the future and cynical about the world. How do you feel inside your body? And what impact is that having on your life? Well, not only was my body unhealthy, my mind was a jumbled mess. I did not have mental health skills, and so I had unhealthy coping mechanisms. Although I could hold a job and I went on with my life, I didn't really know how to connect with other people, and I didn't have healthy boundaries, and I wasn't taking responsibility for things in my life. I had an unhealthy mind, and so I wasn't well. And then it even went further than that. I was unhealthy in my heart. My heart was hurting. And this was bigger than a low self-esteem. It was hopelessness and unworthiness. I also had a very distant view of God, and my faith didn't help or cure my depression. My faith actually kept me trapped in this unworthy state. So what do you believe? How is your spiritual, or how is your spirit, and how is that affecting your life? Well, when I was struggling with depression, what I learned is my wellness had to do with all three factors: my physical health, my mental health, and my spiritual health. And the key to overcoming depression was getting healthy in all three of those areas. Are you well? Ask yourself some questions to define your wellness and gauge your wellness and figure out what you're doing about your wellness. First of all, how do you define it? Is this important to know? How do I define it from a physical standpoint? How do I define it from a mental health standpoint? And how do I define it in a spiritual sense? How do I define wellness? Then I know what I'm shooting for, or I can objectively decide if I am well. Ask yourself these questions, like, what's my ideal weight? How much sleep do I need every night? How much movement is going to make me feel energetic? How do I define a healthy relationship? How do I decide what I'm responsible for in my life? How do I define that? What constitutes a healthy view of the future? How do I love other people? What is my reason for living? How do I define my wellness? You can come up with other questions too. And then next, after you define it, how are you going to gauge it or measure it? Now, often we look to other people as a measuring rod or measuring stick for our own wellness. But other people are not, that's never going to work. It's important to just ask yourself the questions to gauge whether or not you're well. Because you know your history and you know what you have to deal with and you know your personality and your strengths and weaknesses. So it's like, how am I going to gauge it? Do I feel good in my body? Do I feel rested each day? Am I moving enough to feel energetic? Just ask yourself those questions. Do I love myself? Do I have good relationships that are mutually beneficial? I'm helping them and they're helping me. Do I have a purpose for living? Do I have control over my life? So it's a measuring stick to ask to figure out, am I doing well? So once I've defined what it is and then I'm measuring it, how am I going to maintain it or get to the place where I am well? So how am I going to maintain it? I have to be intentional about it. Just like anything, if I want my house to be clean, I need to be intentional to clean my house. And we need to look at not just what I can do to be well in those 3 areas, but what will I do to be well in all 3 of those areas? So what will I do to make sure my body feels good? What will I do to make sure I get enough rest and enough movement? What will I do to show myself love and respect? And what specifically will I do to show others love and respect? How will I practice gratitude? How will I practice and be hopeful? How will I practice and maintain my faith? How will I maintain my wellness? Now, it's good news to know that wellness is multifaceted. You likely are well in ways you didn't consider before. Working towards wellness is a matter of working it in all 3 areas: physical, mental, and spiritual. And taking small, intentional steps is the way to get healthy and well faster and more sustainably. So take out a piece of paper and put it landscape and write physical, mental, and spiritual across the top. And under each one of those, just write one thing that you will do to work towards or to maintain your wellness in each one of those areas. If you're having trouble figuring out why you're not well or you feel stuck in one area, you can buy my books. I have 2. One is So Now What? A guide for people who feel stuck. And then there's also a workbook to help you uncover what you already know. I know you have a lot of wisdom. And that's called So Now What? A guided workbook to get unstuck. It's a journal format with over 200 insightful questions to help you ask these questions you need so that you can be well. Thank you for listening.